Yes, in some rare circumstances, your triglycerides might actually go up on a keto or carnivore diet. And I've been banned from certain Facebook and Reddit groups for even suggesting that this is a possibility. But it's the truth because it happened to me, and I'm going to explain why in this video. So, welcome to Carnivore Talk, where we talk about how to lose weight, reverse disease, and all the many benefits of an all-natural, carnivore-centric way of eating. You can find support on your personal health journey here on this channel and from the many wonderful community members over at carnivoretalk.com, where everyone is welcome because we don't have Nazi carnivore moderators eager to drop the ban hammer on you for your honest and innocent questions. So please, take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it in your social media groups, especially with those whom you know are concerned about their trigs going up, even though they're doing everything right. This video is for them. Now, in 2021, I was diagnosed with high triglycerides. I was getting results around close to 800 milligrams per deciliter, which is considered dangerous levels. To put this in perspective, a reading between 150 and 500 is considered high, and anything over 500 is considered severe. So seeing a number in the upper 700s, almost 800, was certainly alarming, both for me and for my primary care physician. So what exactly are triglycerides? Well, when you eat, the extra calories, sugar, alcohol that your body doesn't need right away are converted into triglycerides and stored in your fat cells. When you need energy, these triglycerides are released into the blood. A person who typically consumes a high carbohydrate diet, eating more high carbohydrate foods than they burn, such as sweets and breads, well, they're likely to have a higher triglyceride level. And high triglyceride levels, which is also known as hypertriglyceridemia, are a high risk factor for atherosclerosis. If your triglycerides are very high, you could be at risk for pancreatitis and liver disease. So in short, you don't want high trigs. And my trigs that were hovering around 800 really needed to come down. So my doctor prescribed icosapent ethyl. That's the generic active ingredient in a drug called Vascepa. This is basically an omega fish supplement that looks like a fish oil pill, but without the nasty fish burps. In April of 2023, right before I started my weight loss journey, my labs showed a value of 690. This doctor wanted to switch me to the name brand Vascepa. For some reason, he thought that this would make a difference, even though the active ingredient is the exact same thing. He also said that if this didn't work, then we would have to talk about the dreaded statin. Now, I did my research, and apparently statin could lower trigs maybe by about another 10%. But when we're talking about numbers in the 800s, well, that's kind of meaningless. Instead, I told him this was my plan. I was going to lose 50 pounds in the next 6 months. He actually kind of chuckled and said, the only way you're going to pull that off is if you cut out every single carbohydrate. And I said, that's exactly what I'm going to do. And I started my carnivore diet in May of 2023. Now, if you've researched how ketogenic diets affect triglyceride levels, then you probably have heard that when you go on a low-carb, keto, ketovore, or carnivore diet, your trigs drop like a rock. I've heard firsthand countless testimonies from individuals who had trigs in the high range of 150 to 500, who got to see them drop down to under 100, even as low as 50, all thanks to their meat-based carnivore-centric diet. So I'm expecting some fantastic results and some bragging rights the next time I get my labs done and go to my doctor. So prior to going to my doctor, about 6 months later, this would bring us to October, I ordered up my own labs, and I was floored by my results, but not in a good way. My triglycerides, which were previously in the 700s, came back at 1,850. It was crazy. Needless to say, I was a bit shaken and a bit lost and very alarmed. Was I killing myself with the carnivore diet? Well, I can tell you that my doctor was not happy, and he was very, very firm. Despite my 50-pound weight loss and the fact that I felt better than I had in maybe even 2 decades, he said that this had everything to do with my diet and insisted that I stop eating meat and started living on oats. He also wanted to prescribe a drug that specifically targets triglycerides called fenofibrate. Now, I tried to describe all the research I had done that shows that everyone else sees their trigs drastically drop when they do this diet, and it can't possibly be the diet. But he didn't want to hear anything that I had to say, even claiming that he had the blood work to prove his position. So I then spoke face-to-face with 2 well-known carnivore doctors. I spoke with Dr. Ken Berry, and I spoke with Dr. Robert Kiltz. The situation, being unique and unusual as it was, kind of had them both stumped as well. Dr. Berry was going to do some research and get back with me, but suggested that maybe I get tested to see if I have the genetic order that causes hypertriglyceridemia, which I guess is a real thing in a small subset of people. He also suggested that I up my fat macros and lower my protein macros, and Dr. Kiltz had pretty much said the same thing. I had been eating more of a high protein, moderate to lower fat diet, and most keto carnivore dieters, they actually do better on a high fat, moderate protein diet. I was doing everything I can to try and hit that 50-pound goal before my doctor's visit because I really wanted to show him up. So anyway, the theory here was that maybe in the absence of enough fat for energy, my liver was converting the protein to glucose, a process called gluconeogenesis. And maybe I was being powered by glucose just like I would as if I were eating carbs. Now, it's a stretch. Trigs shouldn't skyrocket in this manner, but we really had nothing else to go on. So I did that. I upped my fat macros, and I returned to my intermittent fasting schedule, eating 2 meals a day. I'd eat my first meal around noon, and then my second one between 7 and 8 p.m. after the wife got home. And then I also started using butter liberally, bought some beef tallow, added back cheese, started cooking my steaks indoors so I wouldn't lose the fat through the grill. And then I even stopped trimming the fat off and giving it to the dog and started eating it myself. With all this, I was easily hitting a ratio of 70-30 fat to protein, maybe even 80-20 or better. Well, after a week, I ordered up another lipid panel, and my results came back at 1,657. Now, this was a 203-point drop. I'm still probably in the ought to be dead levels, but it was an improvement. And I kept this routine up for another 2 weeks. And during that 2 weeks, I dropped 7 more pounds. And this now brings us to mid-November. I tested again to see how I was progressing, hoping that somehow we solved the mystery. And I got my results back, opened them up, and they were 2,887. Unbelievable. Insane. And this was too much. I couldn't handle it. So I succumbed. I filled the prescription for fenofibrate and started taking it. I'd also read that high-dose niacin can lower trigs and help with lipids, so I started taking that as a supplement as well. Over time, the niacin started causing some other issues, which is a topic for another video, but I do continue to take fenofibrate down to this day. And that's because it did help. After 10 days, my trigs dropped from 2,887 to 1,374. Now, this was still crazy high, but it was an improvement. My HDL went from a pathetic 16 up to 33. Still not great. Normally, you want a triglyceride to HDL ratio of about 2-to-1 or better to avoid the development of heart disease. An example of this would be if your trigs were, say, 120, then you would want an HDL of 60 or better. And my ratio was an insane 181, and now it was 41-to-1. So 2 weeks later, my trigs were down to 930, and my HDL was 27. So this is still good. Now my ratio is 34-to-1. Well, a little over a month later, I tested again, and my trigs are now down to 215, and my HDL was up to 53 for a ratio of 4-to-1. And this is about where my readings have maintained themselves ever since. And I'll take it. That's much, much better than they were before. Now, it's also worth noting that when I had hit that crazy high number of 2,887, I intentionally stopped my weight loss by adding back in a third meal instead of intermittent fasting. And this actually also helped to bring my trigs down. And I'm going to explain why that is in just a little bit. So why do I have hypertriglyceridemia? And why did the carnivore diet amplify my trigs instead of fix them? Especially when almost everyone else under the sun who adopts a meat-based keto, carnivore, or carnivore-centric diet sees their trigs drop to beautiful, pristine levels. What is it about me that's different, even abnormal, compared to most individuals? Well, this took some digging and some self-analysis, but I did eventually reach my own self-diagnosis. If you search for what causes high triglycerides, you'll get results more or less like this web page right here. It reads, there are several lifestyle factors that can raise your triglycerides, such as regularly eating more calories than you use, especially from foods high in fat and sugar. Well, I certainly wasn't eating any sugar. I was doing zero carb, nothing but meat. And it normally wouldn't be the fat because the typical response in most individuals is that your trigs drop like a rock, not go up. It also mentions leading a sedentary lifestyle or being physically inactive, and that's not me either. I do get up and move. I work a very difficult job in construction, remodeling, setting tile, things like that. It mentions smoking cigarettes. Well, that's just gross. I don't do that. I did in high school, but I don't now. And then drinking excessive amounts of alcohol. And I certainly don't drink alcohol. I haven't been drinking much alcohol at all since I started my carnivore journey back in May. It also mentions that these medical conditions may also increase blood triglyceride levels. Diabetes, well, I think I was pre-diabetic, but I can't prove it. Kidney disease, liver disease, obesity, and thyroid disease. And then it ends with, and certain medications may also increase triglyceride levels. So if you followed me on social media or watched some of my other videos, you probably spotted the one way on this list that I am different from most people. And that is that I have stage 4 chronic kidney disease. In fact, I have a video right here about my experience doing the carnivore diet while being on stage 4 chronic kidney disease. Anyway, what this did now was give me some keywords to use over at PubMed as well as on Google or Bing. Keywords such as triglycerides, chronic kidney disease, and chronic kidney disease, dislipidemia, and kidney disease, hypertriglyceridemia. And after sifting through and reading several studies, I came to the conclusion that my kidney disease was directly associated with my high triglyceride problem. I was diagnosed with high triglycerides almost 5 years ago, which is around the same exact time I was also diagnosed with stage 4 chronic kidney disease. So what did my research into these studies reveal? Well, here's 2 studies that spell it out nicely, and I'm going to summarize and simplify it afterwards. So in this study entitled Dislipidemia in Patients with Chronic Kidney Disease, we find the following statements. Patients with non-dialysis dependent CKD, that's me, and without nephrotic syndrome have low HDL and high triglycerides and normal or even low total cholesterol and LDL cholesterol, but a more atherogenic profile is hidden behind this spectrum. Well, that latter part sucks, but we'll get down into that some more. We continue to read, first off, increased hepatic production of triglyceride-rich lipoproteins contributes to increased level of triglycerides in CKD patients. Insulin resistance, often associated with CKD, seems to be responsible for hepatic VLDL overproduction. Now, I have no doubt that I was insulin resistant. And while my carnivore diet should eventually help me fix this, even after a year and a half on carnivore, I could still be insulin resistant to some degree. I'm also not 100% sold on this overproduction aspect, and the next study is kind of why. This next statement, to me, makes more sense. It says, delayed catabolism is the most prevalent mechanism responsible for an elevated triglyceride-rich lipoprotein concentration in CKD patients, and occurs probably because of decreased activity of hepatic triglyceride lipase and peripheral lipoprotein lipase. So here's what that means. Lipase are enzymes. Hepatic lipase is synthesized in the liver. Hepatic means liver. And peripheral lipase is made in the adipose, skeletal, and cardiac muscles. These enzymes help catabolize or break down triglycerides. Or, as another study worded it, CKD leads to a downregulation of lipoprotein lipase and the LDL receptor, and increased triglycerides in CKD are due to delayed catabolism of triglyceride-rich lipoproteins with no difference in production rate. So while the previous study mentioned overproduction, this study says no difference in production rate. And I currently lean towards the latter statement being more accurate. In other words, the rate in which I produce triglycerides could very well be the same as you or everyone else. However, I'm lacking that enzyme that is needed to break down these triglycerides. And while these studies use language that indicates that my shortage of this enzyme might be from downregulation or decreased activity, I don't think that's the case either. What I think is going on here is that just like I'm spilling protein in my urine, I think I'm spilling large amounts of these necessary enzymes in my urine due to my chronic and impaired kidney function. So, how does my prescription for fenofibrate help lower my triglycerides? Well, to put it simply, the fibrates upregulate or increases my body's synthesis of lipoprotein lipase, one of those enzymes that help break down fatty acids. Now, I mentioned earlier that I intentionally stopped my weight loss. Why did I do that? Well, as it turns out, my rapid weight loss is one of the reasons why my triglycerides shot through the roof. You see, your stored body fat is actually stored triglycerides. And as you lose weight, that fat gets dissolved and absorbed into your bloodstream and then taken to wherever energy is required in your body. This is what's happening when you're losing body fat and watching the numbers on the scale go down. Triglycerides that have been packed away right here and saved for later are being used up. So, as I would lose the pounds, my body fat would dissolve and enter my bloodstream as triglycerides. But then, I didn't have a sufficient amount of the necessary enzymes to break them down, so they began to accumulate in my blood. In other words, my triglycerides had a longer shelf life than the triglycerides of most other people, because I'm spilling a lot of this enzymes through my urine. Now, most people see their trigs drop like a rock because they have the necessary corresponding amount of lipase to break that down and use it as energy right away. My body wasn't breaking them down as fast as it needed to, and so it would go for more stored fat. And all that fat was accumulating in my blood as high triglycerides. This is why when I lost 7 pounds in a week and then tested again, my numbers shot up to 2,887, and my blood draws were even starting to look more like oil, which was not a good thing at all. Well, now that I have this all under control, at least to a point, I plan to return to my intermittent fasting schedule so I can take off another 10 pounds or more. So, if you have high trigs and saw them go up, or if you know someone who has, please share this video with them. It might be a good idea to get a renal panel done and check your kidney health. You may also want to get some labs done that will give you some valuable feedback about your thyroid function and liver function as well. Making this video was important to me because I do know that there are others out there like me who have seen their trigs go up on a carnivore or keto diet and freaked out, just like I did. I know because I've seen people post about this in various Facebook groups and on Reddit. Sadly, some of these groups are ran by not loving individuals, but self-appointed carnivore police that even banned me for trying to help others who were also doing everything right with their diet and freaking out about their elevated triglycerides. All they wanted was some answers and some help. Yes, even though most people see a drastic improvement, most people see their trigs drop like a rock, there can be reasons why trigs go up on a carnivore diet for a small number of us with underlying issues. So please, give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel, as this helps get the word out to those who need it. Feel free to share this in your social media groups, and especially when you see someone questioning why their triglycerides may have went up instead of down. And if you are struggling with weight or chronic health issues, I truly believe that you too would benefit from a carnivore or carnivore-centered way of eating. We can help you with questions that you may have over at carnivoretalk.com. And if you have any comments that you would like to leave down below, I look at them all the time, and I certainly enjoy the interaction. And if you've had success with the carnivore diet, or even a carnivore-ish diet, please reach out to me in the show notes below so that you and I can enjoy some carnivore talk with one another. My name is Bob, and I'll see you soon.